Lucas was a contract killer, feared by many, and known for his deadly accuracy. He had been hired by the notorious gangster Lord Marcus to hunt down a woman named Jessica and put an end to her life. Lucas had no idea who Jessica was or why Marcus wanted her dead. But he was a professional, and he always completed his job. Lucas's search for Jessica brought him to a seedy bar on the outskirts of town. He had heard from a few sources that she frequented this place. As he walked through the door, he spotted a man with an eye patch sitting at the bar. This had to be Ray, an associate of Jessica's. Lucas approached him and demanded to know where Jessica was hiding. Ray eyed Lucas warily, taking in his muscular build and cold, calculating gaze. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, taking a sip of his drink. Lucas wasn't in the mood for games. He grabbed Ray's collar and pulled him close. "I don't have time for your lies. Tell me where Jessica is or I'll make you regret it." Ray didn't flinch. He grabbed Lucas's wrist and twisted it, causing Lucas to let go. They stood facing each other, ready for a fight. The action was fast and brutal. Lucas was a skilled fighter, but Ray had military training and a lifetime of experience. They exchanged blows, each landing punches and kicks. The bar patrons scattered, leaving the two men to their fight. In the end, Ray got the upper hand. He knocked Lucas to the ground and fled the bar, determined to warn Jessica of the danger she was in. Meanwhile, Jessica had received word of Lucas's pursuit and knew she had to flee. She hastily packed a bag and made her way to the door of her apartment. As she opened it, Lucas appeared in front of her, a gun in his hand. Jessica froze, knowing she had nowhere to run. But in a split-second decision, she lunged at Lucas, knocking the gun out of his hand. They grappled, each trying to gain the upper hand. As they fought, Jessica spotted an open window. Without thinking, she leapt through it and onto the ledge of the adjacent building. Lucas followed, determined to catch her. As Jessica leapt through the window onto the ledge of the adjacent building, Lucas followed closely behind. The wind rushed past her as she sprinted across the rooftop, her heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. She could hear Lucas's footsteps pounding against the concrete behind her, getting closer with every passing second. The gap between them was closing fast, and Jessica knew she needed to act fast. She spotted a large gap between the two buildings, and without hesitation, she jumped across it, landing on the other side. Lucas hesitated for a moment, sizing up the distance, and then made the leap as well. He landed with a thud, rolling forward to break his fall. But he quickly got back on his feet, his eyes fixed on Jessica. They ran across the rooftop, dodging obstacles and leaping over gaps. Jessica's breath came in short gasps as she pushed herself to go faster. She was desperate to escape, to find a way out of this deadly game. But Lucas was relentless. He closed in on her, his hand reaching out to grab her. Jessica twisted away, barely avoiding his grasp. She could see the edge of the building coming up fast, and she knew she had to act fast. Without warning, she turned and launched herself off the edge of the building, hurtling towards the ground far below. She fell for what seemed like an eternity, the wind rushing past her, her stomach lurching with fear. But just as she thought she was going to hit the ground, she saw a fire escape looming up ahead. She reached out and grabbed hold of it, the metal biting into her hands. She swung back and forth, her body slamming into the building with each swing. Lucas appeared at the edge of the roof, looking down at her with a fierce intensity. But Jessica was already on the move, scrambling up the fire escape as fast as she could. They continued to chase each other through the city, Jessica weaving through alleyways and over fences, Lucas always hot on her heels. But somehow, she managed to stay one step ahead of him, always finding a way to slip away. As the sun began to set over the city, Jessica finally managed to lose Lucas for good. She collapsed against the wall of a building, gasping for breath. She had never been so scared in her life. Jessica had thought she had finally lost Lucas for good, but he had been lurking in the shadows, watching and waiting for the right moment to strike. Just as she turned a corner, he appeared out of nowhere and delivered a brutal blow to her temple. Jessica crumpled to the ground, her vision fading to black as she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she found herself in a dark room, illuminated only by a single flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The air was musty and filled with the smell of dampness and decay. Jessica's head throbbed with pain, and she could feel a trickle of blood running down the side of her face. As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she could make out the outlines of torture equipment scattered throughout the room: knives, ropes, drills, and other implements of pain and suffering. The realization of what was about to happen hit her like a ton of bricks, and she tried to scream, but found that her mouth had been gagged. Footsteps approached from somewhere in the distance, echoing through the dark room. Jessica's heart raced as she struggled against her restraints, desperate to free herself from this nightmare. But it was no use. She was trapped, at the mercy of whoever had brought her here. The footsteps grew louder and louder, until finally, a figure stepped into view. It was Lucas, his face twisted into a cruel sneer. He surveyed her with cold, calculating eyes, and Jessica knew that she was in for a world of pain.